Okay, in this video I'm going to talk about some questions that Dana had put up on a basically a forum message board kind of thing on Virtual County, Victorson County's social media website just for the county. And they just recently opened this edition for all adults and only adults of the whole county, and they had, like I said, forums and message boards, and some people did advertisements and videos and so on, but it was only for the county. And there's just a new thing, like there are different kinds of forums, and one of them was about relationships, marriage, and they just started off as relationships. They didn't want to truly combine. Marriage would have a separate one, but just relationship, like dating relationships. And anything that had to do with relationships, but they kind of stuck away from that, kept away from just saying it's about marriages. Anyway, so Dana, she enjoyed, when she got home from work, she owned her own cafe. It was a very popular cafe, and they recently had taken on doing things for a new area being opened up that was basically for RV parks. And it was an RV park, and the construction workers and so on and so forth are building up the county, which is very wealthy as it is. But anyway, she decided, she enjoyed going home and watching Virtual County, VC, and different things. But when they opened up this new area that was for adults only, the things just went exploding. A lot of people, because one area, which is basically a bad part of the county, was not allowed to join it, but now they are. Once they opened it up for them, yeah. So anyway, so when she got off of work, running her own cafe, she enjoyed, taking a couple of hours, after she cooked her dinner or brought home her dinner, and she just took a couple of hours to sit down and relax. And her relaxation wasn't watching TV or cable or anything like that. She watched Virtual County. She read, and on her TV she could read, watch things, and that's what she did. And usually she developed like a habit of it. She wasn't dating, she wasn't married, she didn't have kids. So anyway, so she, one of them that she found and she became very interested in was the one about relationships, the forum. And she, the county is, one area of the county is known. It was actually developed during the hippie movement, and it was developed by university students who were from wealthy families, and they joined the hippie movement, and so they wanted their own commune. They were just kind of like dreamers in a way. Not dreamers, I shouldn't say this, it's something different. Don't want to confuse it, but they were they wanted their own little commune and all this, and their parents tended to spoil them, so they went ahead and said okay, and they bought off that area. They had a few homes in it, and it didn't even have a name yet, and so they bought it out, and over the years it became basically a place that people knew, people didn't say anything about, and it was pretty much kept secret, where polygamists moved. And of course they didn't go out telling everybody they were polygamous. This is in Texas, and by the way, it's hypothetical fictional stories, and it's all fiction, except for Texas is real. But of course, but polygamists moved there. But also from the hippies, there were a lot of people who were polyamorous. Okay, they did not claim that they were polygamous. They just said this is their lifestyle. A lot, not everybody, of course, and well, Dana, she grew up there, and she basically, she had questions about it herself. And before this new section of Virtual County opened up, she really didn't have anybody to talk to. Now, in Virtual County, everybody has a pseudonym, is what they call it, a PSC, a pseudonym. And now, of course, the people who own it would know who they are, but they don't tell anybody. And anyway, once that opened, she would listen to other people talk, read what other people said about different issues in relationships. Everybody was under a pseudonym. She'd listen to them, but one thing she never heard was anybody talk about poly anything, polygamous groups, and polygamy, and polyamorous relationships and so forth. She didn't, nobody talked about that. And she kind of felt like, people need to open up their eyes, open up their minds, and that was her attitude. So she decided she was going to write on that relationships board. She was going to start a new thread about it and see if anybody, responded. She was upset that basically nobody else did. So she said she was going to be the one. She's kind of outgoing, and she's going to go ahead and do it. Okay. Now, she wasn't going to go in, make huge things. She was just basically decided that she would ask, what do you think about them? And she defined the difference between polygamy and polyamorous, and what, defined both of them. And very brief. And she put out that question. Well, she was surprised. She was shocked. How many people responded? What do you think about them? So many people responded, and many people. And it wasn't, she didn't get strike for it or anything like that. Overall, they're very open-minded to whatever people care to do, unless it's some kind of form of misinformation. Okay, they only believe in facts and no fiction, unless they're writing fiction stories. But nothing that's going to be put out as, this is the truth when it's not. Anyway, some of one of the more common from people who are obviously did not agree with it, and they would state that, was that anybody who was in either one of them, they were narcissistic. That was the first thing many of them said. Now, some of them, they didn't care, stated that it was none of their business. As long as they're not hurting or harming anybody, it was none of their business. And they spun off from it some religious debates, on both sides, and not just one type of religion. In the county, they have people from various religions, several. Okay, so they, that kind of got moved to another, and they decided to move that from there to another thread that was under religious debates. So, spiritual debates. And then some people said that they felt like there was too much power and control, usually by one person, one individual in that relationship. And they felt that it was too much power and control. Well, she was happy that people were responding. They had other kinds of comments. But overall, people were basically kind of like picking their own, even though she didn't give an A, B, C, D kind of question. That's what they did. Many sided with one another, in other words. But she was happy because after that, it did spur on more. People opening up and talking about different kinds of relationships, including those who were not in polyamorous relationships, but with people who felt like that was cheating, and then they had their own story, so a new thread developed, and so on and so forth. Debates. All adults, had shown their ID, and signed contracts, verifying, they're adults and they live in the county. So, and like I said, it spun off other ones, and which was opening up people's minds, and, or just giving people, somewhere to talk about it. And they were being monitored by people like psych majors, or people who had an interest in it, who had degrees in it. People who would really know, not people who want to think that they know, but people who are actually working in the health fields, healthcare, mental health care fields, and they were being monitored. So, so nobody's, like I said, again, they don't like people to throw out misinformation. Anyway, so Dana's got things going, on there. Anyway, I wanted to give this one example about Dana, and these are, hypothetical, fictional stories, dramas and series and all that. But this is an example of, what some feel, like I said, some feel it's narcissistic and some don't have a problem with it, some do. And but what about you? How do you see it? I'm going to wrap this up. Talk to you on another video. Bye.